Hello there. Today we're going to be looking at who is the best Bad Batch member. So the final season of the Clone Wars introduced us to the most unique clone squad in the Grand Army of the Republic, Clone Force 99, also known as the Bad Batch. The squad introduced 4 modified clones, all with different skill sets and personalities, making them even more individual than the regular clone troopers. So Season 7 of the Clone Wars began with the Bad Batch arc, and ended with the batch increasing in size as a former clone trooper, ARC Trooper Echo, formerly of Domino Squad and the 501st, joined, feeling that was where he belonged. So just over a year later we returned to the Star Wars universe when the Bad Batch got their own show, a very good show I will add, which shows the aftermath of the rise of the Empire. And during this, an old member left the squad, but a new clone joined. So as each member has their own unique sets of skills and abilities and personalities, it makes sense to evaluate each of these and determine who is the best Bad Batch member. So let's get into it. Who is the best Bad Batch member? So we'll start with probably the coldest member of the squad, Crosshair, the man who craves power and glory. So his special skill set allows him to make impossible shots and hit the mark. He also has a good eye, often being positioned far away from any action, yet still being able to cover his brothers. So when we think of the smartest member of the Bad Batch, we may think of Tech or even Hunter, but Crosshair will make very difficult calculations to ricochet lasers off any metallic surface. This is seen when he accompanies Commander Cody to Desix. So Crosshair's role in the team seems to be primarily to prevent the rest of the squad being overwhelmed. He does this by taking out threats from afar, whilst the other members engage at much closer combat range. It is a role he fulfills excellently, and because of his keen eye and good shot, he could be considered the best member of the Bad Batch. So now we'll move on to the only regular trooper in the Bad Batch, Clone Trooper Echo. So originally, Echo was a member of Domino Squad and the 501st, before being presumed dead on Lola Sayu, and was then taken captive by the Separatists. So it wasn't until a year later, on Anaxus, when the 501st and the Bad Batch rescued Echo. But this Echo wasn't the same Echo. It was a more mechanical Echo. So how can Echo be considered the best member of the Bad Batch if he lacks any special skills and abilities? So throughout the Clone Wars he was shown to be a capable and good trooper. So after the Battle of Kamino in 21 BBY, him and fellow Domino Squad member 5s were made ARC Troopers, which is to say they were made a special type of clone trooper due to their skill during this battle. So along with being an ARC trooper, Echo would spend many of his spare 501st hours strategizing with Rex, his captain. So these strategies were so good that the Separatists began to force Echo to develop counter-strategies to these years after they were developed, which would suggest to me that these strategies Echo came up with in his spare time with Rex were used for many countless battles during the Clone Wars. So Echo lacks any specific role in the Bad Batch due to him not being a original member, but the roles he most often fulfills are parts of Tech's areas, being strategy, repairs, and even hacking Separatist and then later Imperial stations with his mechanical implants. So next we'll move on to the leader of the Bad Batch, with heightened senses and a very specialised ability to track and do reconnaissance on enemy forces. It is Hunter. So Hunter is a very skilled soldier using both a blaster and a knife to great effect. He has a good military mind, coming up with strategies to meet any Separatist challenge and overcome it. And unlike other members of the Bad Batch, Hunter has a role as tracker, but also has a role as a leader. So this extra responsibility does help his case being the best member of the Bad Batch, as his squad is known for disobeying orders, but not disobeying Hunter's orders. So he is a good leader, earning the respect and loyalty of his squad, bar Crosshair, following him and leaving the Empire and starting a new life working for Sid, and then later on leaving her. So it might be slightly unfair to give Hunter credit for being the leader of the Bad Batch when determining the best member of the squad, purely because the squad can only actually have one leader, otherwise chaos would assume. But then Hunter did perform this leadership role admirably. But if we ignore his leadership role, Hunter is still a valuable member, having similar blaster skills to other clones like Rex and Echo, but Hunter's weapon of choice is his knife, which she can wield and throw with great accuracy. So having these skills with a range of weapons makes Hunter a little more versatile than the average clone, as he has a silent weapon in his blade for stealth missions. So now we'll move on to Omega. So Omega is the most recent recruit to the Bad Batch, and despite never serving in the Grand Army of the Republic, she has picked up life with the squad very well. So unlike most people in the Star Wars universe, Omega doesn't use a typical blaster. Instead, she uses a Zygerian energy bow, which is basically the same as a normal bow and arrow, but with energy. And after a lot of practice, she's become quite good at firing it and hitting her mark. So there's not really too much to say about Omega for the discussion of the best Bad Batch member, purely because of her youth and inexperience. So she never did any missions for the Grand Army of the Republic, and spent most of her life on Kamino. So it wasn't actually until the rise of the Empire when she joined the Bad Batch, and a good many hours would have been spent by the other clones protecting her and training her, so she can't be considered the best member of the Bad Batch. But if she continues to apply herself and develop, in a couple of years she could, in theory, take that mantle. So now we'll move on to easily the most intelligent member of the Bad Batch. We will next look at Tech. So Tech has a special way with languages, being able to translate entire new alien speech into Galactic Basic, allowing for communications with unexpected allies, as seen on Skako Minor when he communicates with the indigenous species there. So along with his skills with words, Tech also excels at making calculations during high-risk situations, which will always benefit his team. So that could be calculating trajectories or trip routes, but also riot racing, which is essentially pod racing, but with more carnage. So Tech's role is often more subtle and less glorious. He often makes repairs to the ship and hacks into enemy software and buildings before the more exciting parts of the mission were completed, which was normally Wrecker blowing something up. So despite this, Tech is also a very good shot, making use of 2 hand blasters and can easily come up with countermeasures to enemy strategies. So having someone good with technology and being able to use it to their advantage is always useful in a squad, especially when your forces are battle droids or mechanical, so Tech skill is very valuable. So he could be considered the best of the Bad Batch based off his non-combat related skills, which none of the others have at quite the same level. So the ability to communicate with unknown tongues and to be able to make efficient repairs and modifications to vehicles and tools would make Tech one of the best, as he couldn't be replaced. So finally, we'll move on to the biggest, strongest and loudest member of the Bad Batch, and that is obviously Wrecker. So Wrecker is definitely the one 8-year-old me would have loved the most, and that's for the simple reason that Wrecker makes things go boom. So Wrecker is the demolition expert in the Bad Batch, and he excels at this role, getting excited whenever the opportunity to destroy some battle droids arises. So Wrecker has a great physical strength, being able to lift debris from a destroyed LAAT, and will happily let his fists do the talking, often using hand-to-hand combat against battle droids, and in the future against stormtroopers. So any mission where combat is inevitable, especially against large forces, Wrecker is possibly the most important member of the Bad Batch, and this is simply due to his high fire rate and ability to move terrain like rocks or debris for his men to cover behind. So however, any mission that involves stealth and subtlety, Wrecker's going to struggle. So while Crosshair can pick enemies off silently from a distance, and Hunter and Echo and Tech can all sneak around and stun foes, Wrecker's just not agile enough to do stealth, which does reduce his versatility in a whole range of missions. So now we've had a look at each of the members of the Bad Batch, it is now time to determine who is the best of the Bad Batch. So each member brings something slightly different to the team, and each member could be considered good in their own right. So as for me, I'm torn between Crosshair and Hunter, and we'll explore why just a little later on. So Echo misses out due to purely not having any special skills, despite being a good clone trooper. So Omega misses out purely due to her inexperience, and Tech misses out due to his skill with machines being overshadowed by all the other combat abilities like Hunter's tracking and Wrecker's strength. And then finally, Wrecker misses out purely because he excels at destruction, but nothing else. For example, stealth. So this leaves us with Crosshair or Hunter, the super shooter or the loyal leader. Crosshair's abilities are probably the most unique, being a combination of skill and genetics, with his good sight and ability to calculate trajectories on the shot to hit many foes, whilst Hunter's abilities can be replaced with machines to varying degrees of effectiveness, so aren't as important. However, I think my final answer of who is the best Bad Batch member will be Hunter, as he has to control the very volatile personalities of Wrecker and Crosshair, and if he didn't have the respect of both, Clone Force 99 would have fallen into chaos and failed. So for this reason, along with his very cool ability to track enemy forces and being a very good soldier, Hunter is the best Bad Batch member. So thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you again very soon.